Hello, welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager, and boy, do I have a special episode for you this week. For the first time ever, my longtime friend Murray McNeil is joining us here on the show. Welcome to the show, Murray.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
And Murray, I think, has been mentioned many times over the years on the show, but has never been seen before. And Murray is one of my oldest friends in Salem, not oldest, but longtime friends, I should say, and one of my oldest friends, maybe two, maybe both of those. Uh, but is probably the only person that watches more movies than me that I know in the local area. And so I've mentioned Murray many times on the show over the years because he watches so many movies, hundreds of movies a year, and like me, likes a huge breadth of movies. And so it's hard to find a good friend that watches everything from classics and westerns and silent films to like new cutting edge art house films, avant-garde, foreign. And then also, Murray, I think your taste has probably been broader than me in that you don't mind the occasional silly mainstream comedy, comic book movie, and just about everything else in between. So I'm really excited that you got to be here on the show today, Murray. This is one of the benefits of having Zoom is that I can have people on and join from the comfort of their home. So very exciting to have you.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, so I'm curious, Murray, everybody who knows you in Salem knows you're also known as Murvy, or Merman or the Murdog. You have many nicknames. Murvy is your letterboxed name, but everybody knows you watch a lot of movies, and I'm curious about, how you got so into movies. Like, was there defining moments for you, or something that makes film especially meaningful to you?
Yeah, well, my dad was a poor pastor, and he had one of his parishioners was the manager of the local drive-in. So every single weekend, he would pack the whole family into a station wagon, and we would go to the movie. We didn't even check to see what it was most of the time, which also led me into seeing some films that were probably inappropriate for my age, but that didn't matter. We'd put food in there, a little jar for me to relieve myself in. And so that was literally an every weekend thing, and I became very involved in film. I love story. I ended up going to university and studying literature. I'm just very into story and movies that I could escape into them. Went to movies all the way through. I took 7 years of a university course where the university I was in, Long Beach State, California University, along with USC and UCLA, was connected with the industry. And we would have movies that were kind of once a week, and we would watch them. And then someone from the industry would be there for a Q&A with a teacher. And there'd be like 500 people in this class. So it was not like an interactive class, but you would see, all kinds of people. David Lynch. I mean, it doesn't matter. All kinds of people were there to review their films and talk to us about them. So that kept me in the movie groove. And of course, with all the streaming and Netflix and everything, it just made it such an availability to watch. And you can watch 500 to 600 movies in a year. You never could do that just going to the multiplex or something. But yeah, so it's just love of story. Every time a movie begins, I sit there. It's almost orgasmic. I go in hoping every movie is going to be 100% wonderful, and that's I want the best for it, and then of course they fail miserably a lot of times, but that's the idea.
But every so often, then that's the reason you keep going back, though, right? Like you said, you always hope it's going to be 100%. You always hope for that 5-star movie, 4-star movie, whatever your scale says, the A plus. It often fails miserably, but every so often there's one that just goes, "Oh, that was it. That's great," and that's why we keep going back, right? So,
Very,
and
very, very seldom go below a C. It really has to piss me off in some way or grate me
I know
to
you're a
my
much more
station.
generous reviewer than I am. So that will be interesting as we actually review movies today. Because I'll notice on Letterboxd, for instance, you'll rate a movie. In fact, we just watched that Richard Linklater movie together virtually. And I think I gave it like 2 stars and you gave it a B or B plus or, so you rated it much more generously than me. And I think, that's fine. I'm just much more critical. That's why I'm a critic. But yeah.
You are a critic, and I'm not a critic. I'm a cinephile. For me, it's all experiential. So it's my experience. And that particular film, of course, was because it was so perfect for my generation. I grew up in that moon age daydream sort of time, and we don't want to go into that specifically, but I could relate to that film, and I knew when I saw that other people that weren't my age would not be riding along with that in the same way.
Right, right. So I think this will be a great episode because the movies we've picked, particularly the two newer ones, are very experiential. Experiential. I think films you almost really have to experience, and I would argue actually have to be experienced on the big screen to a certain degree. So we'll kick it right off with our first film, which is The Northman by Robert Eggers. I was super excited at, going into this film because Robert Eggers' last two films were two of my favorite films of the years they came out. His first film, The Witch, just blew me away when it first came out. I thought, who is this? And then he followed that up with The Lighthouse with Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe, which was a four-star film easily for me, just blew me away, but very weird filmmaker in the best way possible. His new one stars Alexander Skarsgård as Amleth, a Viking prince who is avenging his father's murder and is trying to save his mother, who has now married his uncle, who actually killed his father. And if that story sounds like Hamlet, that's because it pretty much is. Um, and Ethan Hawke plays the father when he's younger, and then Alexander Skarsgård is the character grown up. Nicole Kidman is the mother, and Anya Taylor-Joy is Olga of the Birch Forest, and she's the love interest slash woman with mystical properties of sorts. So I saw this one on the big screen at our local art house theater, and it's just absolutely really fun, fantastic movie to see on the big screen. I would rank this lower than his previous films, however, definitely lower than The Lighthouse. It's a very ambitious, epic, grand movie, lots of violence, lots of fighting and action. It felt a tad too long to me. It felt like it went on. Like it was one of those movies where I kept thinking, oh, this is the end. And then it kept going a little bit. So I felt like it was a little on the long side. But I do appreciate that at least he's trying to do something different. We've seen Vikings and these types of things before, but his attention to detail, everything from sort of the pagan folk rituals that they show in the movie, to the authenticity of, you know, the clothing and the atmosphere that you would find in Scandinavia in this time. That's really just barely the, you know, AD. You know, we're just a few years kind of after the discovery of Christ, right? So they even refer to Christianity being this new weird
900,
thing they've heard about. Yeah. So
900
I'm giving it 3.5 stars, so it's not quite a four-star movie for me, but I'm anxious to hear what you thought of it, Murray.
Well, he didn't have final cut, and that's something to remember. He was working with a much bigger budget, I think up close to $90 million. So he had test audiences looking at it, and he didn't get his actual complete vision, but he's pretty happy with it. I noticed it was 40 minutes before when the movie started to the point where he comes back again now as a grown man to avenge his father's death. And from that point, it takes another 120 minutes before he goes into battle against his uncle. So, I mean, the whole story is him meeting the slave girl and the boat over there, and she's kind of trying to temper his hatred and teach him things about love. So, my first viewing of it, I came out, I had the same feeling that it was a little tedious. I was going, okay, let's pick it up. When is this going to happen? Because I know the story is eventually going to have this thing with this, and of course the gates of hell near the volcano top. With this
Hmm.
naked fight they're going to have. But so on the second viewing, I went back in and I tried to kind of go along with it a bit more to see what he was doing, and with my expectations a little bit less as far as the action element to it, that kind of thing. I
Hmm.
still agree with you though that it's not a movie for all. He thought that The Witch, he called it a boring. He thought his own film, The Witch, and my first viewing of that was like, this is not a typical horror film. I
Hmm.
went back to see it the second time to finally realize what he was trying to do, and I much more appreciated it the second time. I think that's of course the Lighthouse is frantic and it's going every which way, and like you, I agree that's his pinnacle so far. But I'm going to give this about a 3.5 as well. I can't quite give it the 4. I don't think that Alexander Skarsgård is a great actor. He's pure primal in this, which is perfect for him. So uh, some of
He's
the
not an amazing actor, but he gets the job done in this movie, which I think is okay because he's kind of the central character. The amazing performances in the movie. I actually thought Nicole Kidman, she has a few scenes that she really blew me away. Talk about the wicked mother, man. She has a few zingers that really, I mean, I actually gasped out loud in one scene. So she really gets the screen time she has, she uses to full effect as the wicked mother. I thought she was fantastic, and a lot
yeah,
of and
she's more Macbeth than Gertrude.
right, exactly,
It's great.
exactly. She is not a woe is me female. She is all power in this film. So I liked that aspect of it. And it has a gorgeous look. It's a beautiful looking film. So I can recommend it. And it is very action packed, but like you said, a little bit long. And I think just because my expectations were so high after The Lighthouse, which just I thought, oh man, I'm on this guy's wavelength. He's really doing something different in cinema. And you and I both get excited when someone really shoots for the moon. So
Well, he was asked if he's going to do something more modern. He says no, he loves the research. He's going to continue doing things that are,
oh yeah, I think
that,
he should. I mean,
that's what
there's
he's
so much
interested
to be mined in history, and he uses real original source material. Like in The Lighthouse, he used an actual lighthouse keeper's diary to help
in.
inform that. The Witch was very much informed by the Pilgrims' like weird superstitious religious beliefs, and so and all the paganism and the things with animals. I mean, I think he can keep going with those motifs and do something totally original that's still historical. So, yeah, I agree. So we should move on to our next film, which I think
Yeah,
you're introducing.
I am. And this is one that's called Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's currently in theaters, and it's something I'm just going to highly recommend right off the bat. As you said, it would be a wonderful big screen experience. It's done by two directors, both with the first name Daniel. So they call themselves the Daniels. It's actually Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinart. It's their second real feature. Now, they came together in an animation course and then did a lot of music videos. And their first feature was only with a $3 million budget, and now they had 25 million. So that's just to give you an idea, because this is a very difficult film to distill down to a description. But I'm going to give it a whirl. You've got you've got a Chinese woman who marries against her father's will to a man, and then they leave China, which he doesn't seem to care about, but they come to America and open up a laundromat. They have a child, and when you come into the time frame where we are now, the child is an adult, is now an adult. She's got a girlfriend. The marriage isn't doing very well. The laundromat is under an audit, and her father, her disapproving father, has just arrived for a visit. So her life is not good. And she's on the way to this audit when her husband suddenly breaks out of character. And, and you can tell by his body movements, he's becoming totally someone else. And he is a version of himself, but he's in another universe, because you find out, as she describes over the film, that every time she made a decision in her life, she would branch off. So there are thousands of her that have gone on to different lives, and here she is in this one plane of existence, and it's being threatened because some evil entity, which turns out to be her daughter, in a sense, has figured out how to plane through all the universes at once. Because there's a way that you can go from one to the other one. You have to jump it, and you have to do some kind of bizarre action, eat or snort something to get to there. And so you never know what, I mean, it's very hard to take, stop and try to explain this to the audience periodically, what's happening. But this evil entity is finding that she is able to go through. She's trying to take over, and so he's telling her, this person that looks like her husband but talks totally different, that it's up to her to go in and save all of her universes. So you know, and of course at first she's totally wowed by it, but how that happens and how she accepts that is the movie. This is definitely a multi-watch kind of film, and it's just one of the most wow films you're going to see maybe ever. But it's just so pieced. There's so many different fractions to it that you could watch it 100 times and still find something new. It's um, it's just a blast. I mean, at the very first shot, and I want to say this because it shows the family kind of a happy thing, that it flicks, but the camera goes through this mirror, which to me is Lewis Carroll's going through the looking glass. And you
Mm-hmm.
get inside this world, and then of course she becomes this Humpty Dumpty, this these tiny little pieces, and how could she ever bring those back together again? Because what you have to know is that in all these universes, she might have gone on and she might have become a karate expert, and she might become a movie star. She might have done so many different things. So when she's battling this daughter, she has to jump to connect with the person that can best help her out of that situation. So there's just a myriad of her. You could also think of it like a facet of a cut diamond, where each facet creates a gem, but she can only be on one plane at one time. And the plane that she's on, the miserable plane, is she's chosen because she can actually has is not good at anything, and that's why she's perfect to become everything.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's how do you that's just the beginning of this film. You can't believe how funny it gets. I mean, in the audience at the theater, the first time I saw it was just the crowd was just roaring, standing up, cheering. When it was over, people were doing that, clapping and stopped and talked to each other. Everyone stood up in their chairs and started talking to each other. It was just
Oh,
amazing.
wow. It's
Yes,
which is
and I got
really beautiful to see in this day and age, I think.
it's wild because I know you had to see it alone. Michelle Yeoh is being brought. She's been doing things like Crazy Rich Asians, but she's going back more to her super cop days, her Crouching Tiger when she's doing all kinds of uh, karate and all that kind of action. And you've got Ki Hai Kwan from the little guy that was in like the Goonies and in the
Hmm.
Indiana Jones, who has been out of acting forever. He's been behind the camera, working for people like Wong Kar Wai, which becomes a signature look in this film at some point. And he comes back to star in this thing, and it's just I've heard some interviews with him. It's just been so amazing to listen to him talk about him and what it's meant to him. He had three characters. I'm just gonna try to. I know you want to jump in, but he has his three characters, and he went and had a specialist work with him on how to change his body and things so he can embody these different things. And he chose three animals for his main person. He's a squirrel, the one you see
Mm.
that is married to her. For his alpha, he's an eagle, and then for his, the one that she sees when she's a movie star in China, he's a fox. So
Mm.
he actually looked at all these videos of these animals so he could try to figure out how to bodily capture what was happening. So you could see these different characters and all that stuff. So
Right.
I mean, wow, wow,
And one
wow,
of the
wow.
things I heard is that the Daniels that they, really built the movie around Michelle Yeoh, which you can see, she's the superhero. I mean, to me, this movie is like a superhero movie, the way superhero movies would be done if they had any imagination, right? It's a middle-aged woman superhero character. She is finding all these powers within herself. But you mentioned Michelle Yeoh, her old days with like things like Crouching Tiger, so she has that action background, but she's also a serious actress, but she can do comedy. So she has to do a whole breadth here, including just being like a tired mom, And so, and then we didn't even talk about Jamie Lee Curtis, who almost steals the whole show.
I just don't want to tell
Uh,
anyone because it's like finding Waldo. Can you find
yeah,
Jamie?
but she's in there, it's been advertised pretty well that she's in there and she's amazing. And if there was any justice in the world, she'd be up for supporting actress but comedy never gets recognized. But it's one of the best comedic performances I've seen in forever. Jamie Lee Curtis is phenomenal in the movie. And it's one of those movies where every time you think you know where it's going to go, you don't try to guess because it goes somewhere completely different. It's the most fun people will have at the movies this year or any year, I think. So for me, it's definitely a four-star film.
And it's only made so far 45 million. It's $25 million budget US, and it's 45. It's 50 worldwide. Where our other multiverse Marvel, um, came in and made $500 million in the opening weekend. So it's
Yeah,
a
well, it's
set.
just that's the
It's a
brand,
set. It
but
is. I mean, people have to get this word out because people need to see this. It's a four-star movie all the way. It's number two on the Letterboxd all-time movie list. Only that Beatles 8 hour thing is on top of that right now. But I
right.
mean,
And it
this
actually, unlike a
everything.
lot of the superhero movies of today that I find tiresome and too long, that go on for 3 hours and, just seem dreary, this one, it remembers what comic books used to be like, which is fun, right? Like it's supposed to be fun and joyous and
Has
crazy
an
and weird.
it has an ending, and people fault it for its warmth because it, of course, ends up. I mean, I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but I won't ruin it for anybody. But it doesn't. It's not trying to look for a sequel. It's not trying to, and it's definitely because it has this nihilistic image. It's about nihilism, and how do you combat nihilism in this world? And
Mhm.
so, I've done a lot of existentialist literature classes and studies, and so how they approach those things and make it fun, funny, and how to counterbalance that is just an amazing, amazing end.
So
You'll walk
definitely
out
a
of the
big,
theater so happy.
yeah, definitely a big recommendation for both of us. So we'll move on now. I think you've got the next one, Murray.
Okay, so I decided to choose something. It's actually a movie that Angela got me for my Christmas present. It's authored up by the Criterion Collection, and it's a um, this Visconti. I could get his name wrong. Luchino Visconti. It's his movie The Damned, and it's from 1969. It's it was rated X when it first came out, and it had to be cut by 12 minutes to be released in the United States. It had a huge. Everyone wanted to see it. This kind of thing where everyone got around the block so they could see this erotic, crazy film. But it's really just the opposite if you think about everything everywhere all at once. Because we're looking at Germany, we're looking at a uh, company that's a steel company that's something it's like industrial company run by this baron who's a socialist, but of course the Nazism is coming up, and he's realizing they're going to have to align themselves with the Nazis just to stay afoot. And then so within this, you have this huge family um, drama, melodramatic, murders, incest, everything you can imagine, trying to do this power struggle to see who's going to come out on top. You've got someone that's actually in the Nazi party that's driving things, and you've got this the wife that's using her lover who works for the company to kill her husband, and sending another one sending her husband, her actual husband, off to flee, and yeah, it's just wild. And things about it. It's very technicolor, it's very melodramatic, but there's so much kind of evil and stuff going on within it too that it's not a happy film by any means. I thought it ran a
Mhm.
little long. We both love the Leopard, which is actually a film he did in 1963, where he won the Palme d'Or for that. And this is down in 1969. It's almost like um, trying to compete with Pasolini or something like that with this wild, like Sallow. I mean, there's just nutty things. I don't know if you remember, but at one of our film club things, I brought this Silly Boy Slap Party short
Mhm.
to it, and there's one scene where the SA, which those are the people that have been the paramilitary people that have been helping Hitler, but he fears them because the military are afraid of these people. So he allows them to come in after they're having this wild rebellious thing where it's just homosexuality afoot, and people should know that Visconti is a homosexual. But I mean, they come in and they shoot all these people. It's the night of the long gun. It's a real thing that happened, and sort of thing. So there's a lot of historical significance, but unless you come in and you really know a lot about the German things going on, what the SA, what the SA is, what the SS is, what's going on, you may get a little bit lost in it. I think it might be a little tedious for some. Overall, I had to think this is more like a three than a four.
Yeah, it's not Visconti's best work, but it really stuck with me. So there is that. I mean, we've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of films about Nazis. Brian, back when he was hosting with me, we used to joke that was our annual Nazi film. We had to do either a Nazi film or a Holocaust film or both. And so, because there's always new ones coming out, right? And this was a different take, which I thought I appreciated because it's really a critique of capitalism in a lot of ways, right? Because they're all willing to do whatever's necessary, including joining the Nazis, because most of the family don't really care one way or the other. It's just about controlling the company and getting the money ultimately. And then they decide when they figure out the Nazis are taking power that that's going to be the most politically as well as financially advantageous. That's when they start to go in that direction. You didn't mention him, but Dirk Bogarde is in this. He worked with Visconti,
Oh,
obviously, in some other films, including Death in Venice. And it's also very interesting because he's obviously not German. And I think one of the few actors in the film who it's a mix of actors, I think, in the film who are German and Italian. And then there's
oh
Dirk
no, and then
Bogarde, who's
Swedish. You got Thulin Swedish. She was in all the Bergman films. She's the one that
right,
plays
right. Yeah,
the
so you have a big mix and it's all dubbed. So people have to get used to that. That was very common in that era with European filmmakers. Fellini did that as well. So I still can recommend it, but it's probably not for everyone's taste for sure.
Bogart goes totally. I've seen him so many films. I love him. Death in Venice is one of my favorite films, and we don't have time for me to talk about my experience with that when I was 14. But yeah, I love Dirk Bogarde, but he's like screaming out loud, which I've never seen him do in any other film.
Yeah,
He's
no,
not.
it's very over
Uh,
the top, which Visconti can
it's
be kind of over the top, but this isn't, below the Leopard and Death in Venice, but it's still, I think, a worthy entry in the Visconti, and especially if you're a fan of Italian cinema and his work, I would definitely recommend it. So we have to move on to our next film because I want to make sure we have time to talk about this one because I'm very excited about it. Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy. This is a film by Ryusuke Hamaguchi, who is very well known now in the US, or at least by film lovers, because his film Drive My Car was nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars last year, and he got a surprise nomination for Best Director. And this was the film that came out the same year that got a lot less attention. And I wanted to see it, but it didn't get theatrical release like Drive My Car did. And this is three stories focused on female characters. One is a love triangle, one is a seduction gone wrong, and the third one is a mistaken identity encounter between two women who think that they might have gone to high school together. And so it reminded me a little bit more of Happy Hour in some way, which is 5 hours. This one is not as long, but in that it really focuses on these female characters and their stories and gets at these things about loneliness and lost love and regret and loss in life. And I absolutely loved this film. My favorite story was the third one, and my least favorite was the first one. So it's good. It's good to stick with it. The mistaken identity encounter I found particularly poignant because it's these two women who are at very different points in their life. They start to get together because they think they went to high school together, and they're now they think they were at their 20-year high school reunion. So they're in their late 30s, right? And then they realize, oh, maybe we didn't, but then they end up sort of bonding over, oh, this is what I would have said to people I went to high school with. So they can use each other as this opportunity to sort of reflect on lost opportunities. One is a lost opportunity of a girl she really was in love with in high school, and sort of a lost love. Yeah, first love. And then the other one was more of a friendship where she never got to tell the person how meaningful their interactions playing piano together meant. And so, Ryusuke Hamaguchi's films they're like the opposite of a lot of the films we've been talking about. They're not crazy, they're not fast paced. They're just warm, gentle human dramas about the things that bring us together as humans. And I know we're running out of time, so I want to hear what you had to say about it.
Well, one of his favorite directors is Jean Renoir, and of course he loves Cassavetes. I've been reading about him. Kanoshi Kurosawa is someone he studied under. I love the fact that he uses a lot of literature in a lot of his pieces, and so of course I gravitated towards the second one just because of that. I somehow felt that was like his stand-in for himself, and how this person was supposedly being undermined by the student who realizes that she has much more of a connection with him than she does with this sexual buddy that she's been dealing with, and so forth, and what a sincere person he is, and how she inadvertently, accidentally, because of the way life gets rushed around, she ends up siding with him, but then ends up destroying his career anyways, because she mistakenly sends something to the administration that shows that he was possibly sexualizing her in this conference they were having. So that was very sad. But this is a director that everything he's going to do is going to be amazing. He did get the Silver Bear for this at the Berlinale, so I mean he got recognition for it. But of course, when it came down to it, I think Drive My Car is the better film, probably. Okay. But I think that everybody was, they had to kind of focus on one. But this is a beautiful film.
And this is also a beautiful film. I agree. And I can highly recommend this one. It is showing on Criterion Channel right now. So if you have access to that channel, please check it out. Yes, Criterion all the way. Murray, we're out of time. I was so happy to finally have you on the show. It's been such a delight. I hope you come back. Yes. And as always, Real Film Snobs, check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Murphy on Letterboxd. Yes, check him out. I'm not going to go through all the credits because we're out of time. Thank you very much. Have a great day and great movies. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.